Are you spending hours gathering resources, sailing back and forth between islands, and still feeling like you're barely progressing in Windrose? Because honestly, most players are slowing themselves down without even realizing it. The game explains almost nothing when it comes to progression efficiency. And if you don't prioritize the right systems early, you end up wasting a ridiculous amount of time. So in this video, I'm going over the biggest mistakes slowing players down early game and how to progress much faster without turning the game into a grind. One of the biggest issues with Windrose right now is that players naturally assume that they should play slowly and grind everything manually, but the game actually gives a ton of systems that massively speed up progression. It just barely explains any of them. If you're trying to build your first real ship early, chances are you're spending way too much time farming copper for nails or just trying to find a solution. The problem is manually crafting every single nail slows your progression down massively. And I did the math, that's 80 copper ore, 20 wood, which turns into 20 charcoal, which turns into 20 copper ingots, and those 20 copper ingots can be turned into 100 nails, which isn't too bad in retrospect, but you use a lot of copper early on and you only have the one mine that you're relying on it to respawn, so it's better to use the shipwreck method. You should prioritize salvaging shipwrecks along beaches early on. Not only do they give you wood, but they also provide free nails, which can skip a huge portion of the early game grinding. Another thing slowing players down hard is travel efficiency. Most people are constantly sailing back and forth just to deposit resources or craft something at a base when they were visiting another island. But once you unlock fast travel bells and understand that you can access your ship inventory directly from your base, progression speeds up dramatically. A lot of players eventually hit what feels like a progression wall, where suddenly every upgrade needs resources you barely have. Clay and plant fiber are two of the biggest early game bottlenecks. The issue isn't necessarily rarity, it's the game never properly explaining efficient gathering routes or methods. For example, when you're sailing on a ship and you see these blue beacons in the sky, you're going to want to loot those. You're going to get something called a rare resource. If an item is labeled as a rare resource, it is indicated that it is going to be needed for an upgrade down the road, whether it be for ship, weapons, gear, whatever have you. One thing I think a lot of players don't realize is that Windrose is actually much more forgiving than it first appears. If you craft the wrong gear, experiment with builds, or make mistakes early, you can recover a lot of those resources through the disassembly table and reset your stats whenever you want. That means progression isn't nearly as punishing as people initially think. At the end of the day, Windrose progression becomes much smoother once you stop treating every system like a grind and start focusing on efficiency instead. The game has a lot of really smart mechanics hidden underneath the surface, it just doesn't explain them very well. So if this video helped you out and there are other systems or frustrations you want broken down, let me know, because there are honestly a lot more to this game that meets the eye.